Hello again. What did you think of the last tape? Did you learn something new? I really hope that you did. Today, we're taking a step away from the biological side of things and tackling another less scientific, more philosophical theory for why we put special moral importance on family. This theory is put forward and defended by Philip Pettit and Robert Goodin, and this is the theory of special duties. So, special duties are duties laid on an individual or a collective due to their distinctive identities, relations, or histories. In layman's terms, it means that the recipients of these duties, whether it's oneself or others, will experience prejudiced treatment that might be meaningless on a global scale, or, much in line with the question at hand, at the cost of others. Okay, so before we get into Pettit and Goodin's defense for this claim of special obligations, let's unpack a little bit of the statement about what dictates whether one has a special duty and to whom. They mention that these duties are given to individuals based on their distinctive identities, relations, or histories. So, distinctive identities refers to the fact that you are a distinct and unique person with your own interests at heart, and so these duties are your own psychological and physiological needs. Relations refers to your duties to your dependents, i.e. your parents, children, siblings, lovers, etc. And finally, histories refers to the special duties that you have as a result of past commitments made explicitly or implicitly and must be honoured and upheld. Finally, Pettit and Goodin make an important distinction for their defense case. They introduce the concepts of relativized and unrelativized duties. Relativized duties are linked to individuals who hold it, whereas unrelativized duties have no one particular individual to link back to. So, for example, if I made a promise to my friend, it is my relativized duty to keep that promise. But it is the unrelativized duty of everyone not to lie or deceive. So, while in concept these two duties are relating back to the same thing, they are different in their scope. Relativized duties, as you might have noticed, are what Pettit and Goodin attribute to special duties. Now, a lot of the defense for this is directed towards neutralists who believe that moral duties should be impartial. Specifically, they reject the idea that obligations such as justice or honesty should be bearer-specific, or specific to certain individuals but not others. Pettit and Goodin defend bearer specificity and argue that some duties just simply are tied to an individual and cannot be generalized. They don't think that is a flaw, but rather a legitimate feature. He uses children as an example. Many would find it desirable for children in general to have a good start in life. Despite this, not everyone is required to give a good start for every child they meet. Only A, most likely the parent, is required to provide that start for their child. And what do they suggest that X is? Well, they suggest that X is responsibility, hence why in the previous scenario, the parent has the duty to provide for their child as it is their responsibility. Responsibility in this case is not in the casual sense, but in the functional sense. It's the idea that they have physical and emotional responsibilities to their child, as is their role as a caregiver. But still, how do you decide where the responsibilities lie? Luckily, Pettit and Goodin have that covered too. They put forward conditions for deciding on when an individual is responsible for a particular task or outcome. See, Agent A is responsible for P if, condition 1A, A alone can influence P, condition 1B, A is one of several people who can influence P, but only one person should act and A is the best or most appropriate, and condition 1C, A is one of several people who can help all at once without interfering with the outcome. And finally, condition 2, which is A knows which of the above apply. This essentially assigns responsibility to those who have the ability to influence the outcome are the best person or most qualified to act, and are aware of the above. And the last bit of defense that Pettit and Goodin give towards neutralists for their criterion is that it allows for both bearer-specific duties and universal duties to coexist. Now, there's quite a bit to digest there, so if you feel like there's some aspects which have gone over your head, feel free to rewind the tape and have a listen again. I'll also do a summary at the end of this tape, so hopefully that will condense down the main points for you. However, we're not done just yet. Now that we've looked at the content of the theory, we are in a position to discuss and understand the strengths and limitations of the idea of special duties. For the strengths, we can first give credits for Pettit and Goodin aligning their points with common sense morality. Common sense morality is simply the idea that acting morally just makes sense. Ideas that Pettit and Goodin put forward, such as a parent having special obligations to their child, or things being desirable for multiple people but only one person has the responsibility for it, it aligns with everyday scenarios and events that happen. This is a strength because it protects the theory from becoming too abstract and prevents the risk of the theory not being applicable in the real world. Pettit's theory can also be credited for not being binary in its argument. Despite the fact that a lot of the theory is a counter to the neutralist argument, it doesn't completely ignore all of their beliefs. Specifically, the neutralists point towards universal desirability, and so do Pettit and Goodin. However, Pettit and Goodin make a distinction whereby desirability is universal, but responsibility is not. This allows their point of view to take what is positive about the neutralist view and build upon it, making their theory stronger. However, this theory is also held back by its reliance on common sense. Specifically, the ideas of salience and responsibility seem over-reliant on the fact that an individual has some sort of common sense. But what if they don't? What if they have a medical or mental condition that prevents them from thinking with the same common sense that Pettit and Goodin assume we all have? Or what if they are from a different culture, whereby their societal norms and customs inform a different common sense than other places? Relying on common sense isn't a solid foundation for their points, it seems. And finally, Pettit and Goodin's theory can also be criticized for the lack of elaboration on desirability. The theory only goes so far as to say that it is universal and objective, but it kind of ends there. What's the criteria for desirability? We get one for responsibility, why not desirability too? Once again, the theory overlooks certain aspects which prevent it from feeling thorough and complete. Alright, we're done. Hopefully that all went over well with you, but if there's any important bits you missed, we'll do a quick recap now. So, duties can be unrelativized, universal, or relativized, specific, and special duties are relativized, obviously. Pettit and Goodin defend their claims against neutralists, who think that if something is desirable, it should be universal. They suggest that desirability isn't the only factor and that responsibility is the X factor in the argument. Pettit and Goodin unpack responsibility, suggesting that someone is responsible if they meet certain conditions. These conditions are: A alone can influence P, A is one of several who can influence P but are the most salient or appropriate, or A is one of several who can influence P all at once without interfering with one another's contribution. Only one of the above will apply, and the final condition is that the individual must know which one. This criteria allows for universal desirability to coexist with bearer-specific duties. The theory is strong for aligning itself with common sense and real-life implications, and for adopting the positive sides of the neutralist argument rather than just countering it through and through. However, it's held back by its over-reliance on vague terms. Specifically, common sense is something that is subjective to cultures and individuals, and desirability is not given a strong enough definition to be depended on in the theory. Phew, that was a lot to get through. Take a break, drink a coffee, try to quietly digest the information in your own time, and think, what else do you think the theory does right, does wrong, and can you think of any more examples of relativized or unrelativized duties? Tune in next time where we will discuss family ties in relation to ecology and subsistence.